get started with the agenda. Motion to adopt the agenda.
I'll move it. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any nays or abstentions? The motion passes. The next item is a motion to acknowledge the minutes of May 13th, 2019.
I'll move it.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Any nays or abstentions? If not, the motion passes. You know, the first item, I just wanted to make some comments, and actually, they are talking about the bringing us into a new technology age, which I think also brings us in with gremlins, unfortunately, at the outset. But as you may also notice, right now we have much better sound in this room. The last phase of it was adding speakers up on the back, so it can be heard and picked up. You know, we do have the mic in front of us and this new mic, and then we do have one screen that's set up, and then we have this other one, and it's going to be designed, as the board knows, for multi-function use for a variety of different meetings, including also the seniors have their movie day each week. So instead of using antiquated equipment, where Jessica has to really work miracles sometimes to get the movies on, we'll have a better capability for that in other functions, since this will be easily connected to a new computer capability. Also, just to point out for the board in the back, there's a jack so that we also can jack music and other audiovisual capabilities into the back of the room. See the white box over on the side. So if Jessica, as the seniors are doing their exercise in this room, now they have to have a boom box. Sometimes doesn't work. So we brought that in, and I think as part of our overall greater interactive openness and transparency, also going out, I think shortly will be the kind of the test run for board members and certain of our staff, to see the new design of the website. This is the one that we've been working with on the county, and so before it's actually released, I want everybody to take a look at it. And I think that the new communication tool, for us, various boards, and also departments, is going to make a lot more improvement to this larger initiative that we have of being more responsive, more open and transparent, to the ways that we, run town hall, conduct business, and the way that we are able to work with our consultants and other advisors. So as a result of over the last 16 months, just to highlight things, we have had now new enhanced computer capability, bringing us into really the 21st century as to both storage and then capability to access it. We now have, and soon to have completed, our new software packages, which also include financial accountability. I sat down and talked with our accountants as part of their audit, and actually are very pleased and think that we're leading the other municipalities on what we've done and what we're going to be doing, especially as Edmunds software, financial software, goes online. The new policies and procedures, which we reviewed, will be getting a full report from the auditors a little bit later, as we've done in the past, but also our abilities as councilmen and women have brought out, particularly Councilman Bill, Councilman Bettina, even as to civil service compliance, where we have found that there was a lot of that was a needed improvement, and therefore avoiding a lot of potential for complaints and fines. The modern payroll system now is also part of the new accountability and ability to finance, to run the town's finances, in the sense of the massive amount of work that is done, because we actually have two unions. Nothing to criticize that, but have had two unions, and as you know, two different contracts that create an added complexity to the way we do things. Large backlogs, particularly with our permits, and also our escrows have been gradually eliminated, and I think you'll hear more about that from the accountants when they report later on. This room, new audiovisual capabilities. We also have a rolling capability. And then tonight, we're asked to, I'm asking you to approve for $1,700, which will allow us to use mobile within the town hall, such as tonight we're having the zoning board, appeal board's meeting down in the senior center because we're using this room. That's going to enable us to get that fully online, as well as other activities. We have, for example, senior classes that we've inaugurated, as you recall. So this new record keeping database, of course, we're able now to archive all the various meetings and events. Of course, the town clerk has done a great job at archiving our board meetings and has that, but now everything will be going online. And again, I think that will open for accountability and also responding to inquiries. So as you know, including tonight, we're going to continue with the full support, unanimous support of the board in continuing to make sure that we're more open and transparent. And I thank all the board members and also our consultants, the highway superintendent and the town clerk, for that support. So I just wanted to report to everyone that these are getting largely nearing completion, I think, of this major stage. So that's a report to our town tonight. Any comments that any of you would like to make?
No, I mean, I think that we've already said what a great job we've done with contracting this company to do our audio and visual work. I mean, I think it's been a tremendous help, and not only at meetings, but at events outside the town. I mean, you look at what they did with Memorial Day and some of the other events. I don't think we've had that type of coverage or exposure in the past. So I do think it was a great thing that we did, and certainly anything we can do to continue that progress, I certainly would wholeheartedly support.
Thank you.
I think that, people have come to expect a certain level of on-demand for their local government, and I think we're in a position of providing that now with the new technology. Obviously, it's going to take some time for us to get to where we need to get with the technology, but certainly I know that each board member has heard positive feedback from constituents about seeing the meetings and the events on the channels, so greatly appreciate that access, so good work.
And I think that this is probably the first month that I haven't heard Councilman Beal say at one point, somebody just texted me and they can't hear or see what's going on at the town board meeting.
Maybe they'll text about seeing, I don't know.
Actually,
well, maybe tonight that's going to happen. I don't know, but
well, right now I am getting texts that we're not on television.
Well, okay, see, I jinxed it. But generally, in the past,
You're on? Okay.
In the past, we've had issues, but we don't seem to have them anymore. So we've made great leaps and bounds in that regard.
We're on TV now.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
But the entire preamble by the supervisor was
Right,
left
that's
out.
recorded in posterity, at least by the town clerk, so.
It's in the minutes.
That's all right, we'll move on to the next instead of delaying that any further. So, the first item is to open the public portion of the meeting. Do I have a motion?
I'll move it.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Any nays or abstentions? The motion passes. So, as in the past meetings, we do provide this opportunity for anyone to come up to the podium to identify yourselves and to address a specific item that's on the agenda. We only talk about agenda items. So, if anyone has any comments, there will be, as we hear from the various consultants and on some of the resolutions, other discussion among the board and the consultants. But if anybody from the public is interested in speaking, please come up, identify your name and your residency in the town.
Seeing none, I'll make a motion to close the public portion.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Any nays or abstentions? Seeing none, the motion passes. The next item on the agenda is item number 6, and this is, as we've done in the past, having some discussions on pending matters, some updates in some cases, and other cases may in fact move to a resolution. In this case, the first item, we'll be talking about the site plan for the restroom and storage shed at Inspiration Field. So Steve Frazier, would you please come up and talk about that, and then I'm sure Bob Gray will also have some discussion.
Okay.
So here we are using some of the new technology.
Handouts.
Thank you. Thanks, Bob.
Okay, what we have here is a diagram of this is the existing field here. And then right directly behind the backstop where is the proposed restroom and shed. It's on a 3-foot fill pad, which is what these graduation lines are. That brings it up above the floodplain. And behind that then is the storage shed. There is a set of stairs that would bring you up to that level, and then a ramp for those that can't use the stairs on the side there. What we're looking for is your approval of the plan, and we can start putting the pad together. The town engineer has some additional information then to go along with that.
Go ahead, Doug.
And you also see on this map, you can see there's a septic tank and a pump chamber. We're going to build a, you'll see on the maps that I handed you, you'll see a new septic system over by the pavilion on the, I guess that would be the east side. A new system. We attempted, if you recall, you asked us to look into possibly using the existing system to accommodate this. Based on what we found, we don't think that's a good idea to have a new system there. So,
And that's the rectangular box to the right of the...
correct. Just to the, I guess it's the east of the pavilion.
Okay.
And you'll see a cost, if you look at the spreadsheet on the first page, you'll see a cost, an estimated cost of $20,000 for that septic system.
Okay. And this is the line, the line
Yes,
that is
that-
the line is the sewage line?
That would be the force main from the pump station
Okay.
over to the septic system.
Okay.
Right now, we don't think we need fill for the septic system, but we'll be doing some deep tests to make sure of that. Because I would like to be able to utilize that system, not have it higher than the existing system, so that if we want to take flow from the existing system, we can go to the new one. The new system is over very close to the pavilion. Well, the old system is very close to the pavilion.
So based on my understanding of your figures, the total, including the tank, the pump chamber, and the septic absorption area would be approximately $30,000, $30,500. Is that correct, Bob? You know, the last three line items.
Yes. Yeah.
And the first, you know...
The first three numbers are the ramp, the fill, the
For the
bathroom, and the fill pad for the, to get us up above the floodplain.
And the precast, you know, the compliant restroom, ADA,
Correct.
that's the same design that we had looked at
The
before,
floor
that
line-
Steve had
and
shown.
you saw
Right.
pictures of it. And that floor level will be 2 feet above the floodplain. That's the reason for that.
Okay, okay. I'll ask, you know, Bettina, have you seen this before, or what's your?
No, this is my first time seeing it. I'm seeing the, oh, yeah, sorry. I'm seeing the third base dugout, but I'm not seeing the first base dugout, right now. So, okay. All right, I just wanted to make sure that, you know, the ramp wasn't in the dugout or
No.
anything.
And I made the steps are extra wide, so you might end up having people sitting on those steps. Kind of be a nice spot. So rather than the 3 or 4 foot wide stairs, I think they're 6 or 8 feet wide.
Okay.
And that ramp is compliant, wheelchair compliant. You can only have a 1-on-12 pitch for a handicap ramp, and there has to be a landing area every 20 feet. So that's compliant when we show it.
And I know this is talking about the actual physical design, but the inside of the bathroom, it will be completely compliant
Yes,
with changing tables for larger than a baby?
yes.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
So,
And I know that we also have, maybe while you're standing here, Bob, you can just summarize the ball field,
Yeah, I can.
which is the second item.
before I leave this, this will have to go out to bid.
Right.
So in your resolution tonight, if you could authorize us to prepare the bid documents and advertise them.
Yeah, I think,
can
the
move it
board, whether or not tonight or we need to have some, because Frederick's not here, we need to look at the
Yes.
budget as the financial numbers, and I don't know if Bill has any thoughts on it, but, since I'm just seeing these numbers, haven't had a chance to review it
Understood.
with him.
These are capital projects. I
Right.
mean, we need to make sure we discuss how we're going to finance it.
Right, exactly. That's why I mentioned it, I
I
think
just
that,
wanted to be clear, this would have to, we can't just go ahead and do this. It has to
correct,
Go out to bid.
that's absolutely correct.
And as you were saying, Supervisor, the next column, I took the liberty to put a second item on the spreadsheet. I know we're talking about the potential for enlarging the field out to the outfield fence. And this is our, this is our figure right now to do that. You'll see on the 27.5 for the synthetic surface, we're waiting for confirmation from the manufacturer and the installer on that. That's our estimate based on what we've seen previously, but that could come down. I think I'm probably a little high.
We had talked at the last meeting when we had tabled the resolution, and probably again would table the resolution tonight about the seam, all that would come out, so it
Yes.
would be a seamless field, going
We
out.
would remove the, saw cut it, remove the concrete curb, extend the field out to the outfield, and what we're looking at, and Bettina, you might be interested in this, providing a metal, it would be subsurface, but rather than another concrete curb, we think a metal divider between the new surface and whatever, we're gonna come very close to the fence. So rather than spend a lot of extra money on the curb, I think the metal divider would be more than adequate.
And the metal divider is of what nature?
Well, it's to basically keep the synthetic surface separated, similar to what the curb was doing in the previous design, which created some issues with settlement and cracking and things like that. So
Freezing and
we're looking to avoid that with the metal divider.
That makes sense. Where the curb is the biggest issue is inside the field,
Yeah.
and then right at the gate where it's, now it's raised. But there is a curb out there underneath the fence, so, yeah.
Well, we want to do this without disturbing the fence. So we can get to that curb, fine. Otherwise, we'll be putting in a metal separator.
As long as it's not going to endanger my kids. Yeah.
Understood.
Okay, any other questions the board may have?
I think we had asked to get pricing, and at least we have something to work with now.
Right, we have something to work with, and I think we'll need to have some further discussion with our, financial expert or controller, Frederick, and to look at how we will pay for the capital costs.
Yeah, my understanding is this is a Parkland Trust eligible project.
Okay.
Yeah, I would say so, but I'll let Jim confirm that.
It would be. And I don't know where we are as far as balance in Parkland.
I think we still have 600 and maybe 50,000 approximately in Parkland Trust monies around in that ballpark.
Yeah, this warrants a discussion with the accountant. You're right.
And you can also bond it, and, obviously grant, there's grants available as well.
Right. We're looking into grants, and later on we'll with the grant writer proposal, this would be one of the grants that I would ask, if approved, Scott Williams to look into working with Bettina on that.
I have access to some, but I would need
Yeah.
bids and, numbers.
Scott has a lot of knowledge, assuming we pass that, so. Okay, well, we'll come back, I think, probably for the resolution portion of it, table that, but let's talk about that more when we get there. The next item is that, we've invited, are you Colleen? Yeah, Colleen to come and talk to us. She had wanted to have the chance before the board just to give an introduction, to how Sativa, the medical cannabis dispensary, wants to work with our community. Also, a little bit of education to the board, just to explain what's going on. No resolutions or no requests for anything tonight. It's more an introduction to what you're doing and envisioning.
Exactly.
So, the floor is
Thank you.
yours.
Thank
Please
you,
identify
Supervisor.
yourself fully
Yep.
in your position.
Thank you, Supervisor Thurston and council members. My name is Colleen Hughes. I'm the Director of Community Development and Education for Sativa New York. We're one of the 10 licensed registered organizations in the state of New York. So I came to kind of give a broad overview of the medical marijuana program and let you know that we are located on Route 9, 1147, Route 9 next to the Teg Bank on the south side. We've been open since Valentine's Day. That was our opening day. I really just wanted to start to come and introduce myself and start a dialogue with the board and the community to let everyone know that we're here, and mostly to be a resource for answering questions about medical cannabis and about the legalization efforts that are happening in New York State. As you know, there's always something happening in those regards. So they've just put forth a new bill that they're hoping to pass by the end of the session in mid-June, which would in essence legalize recreational use for cannabis. Our company is owned by a capital management firm in Canada, which will become a national brand. We're a multi-state operator, so we have assets in 11 states. So what that means for the town of Wappinger is that you'll have a national cannabis organization doing business in your town. So I basically came here. I didn't bring free samples. I'm sorry to disappoint anyone else, but I have some examples of what medical cannabis would look like. It's capsules, it's a vaporizer, and a lot of the people that visit our dispensary are gravely ill, very sick. It's not a party time. It's not something that would be considered a recreational situation. So I just want to make that clear for the community, is that what we do is provide a resource for people who have hit their limit on the medical solutions that have been available to them. We know we treat elderly people with Parkinson's. Most of our patients are older than 50 and come to us with really serious illnesses. And so I kind of wanted to represent that those patients are here in the community, and they're the largest number of patients that we serve, really. And the people that do come through our doors are very sick. And so I just want to make sure that everyone understands the gravity of the situation and how there's really not a lot of resources for people who are very sick and have been stuck on opiate medications and other things. So what I'd like to make known is I'm going to leave some literature here on the table with my email address on there for anyone who has any questions about anything moving forward. Is that my medical director, who's a practicing physician, and I go out into the community and we do educational events where we talk to parents on how to talk to your kids about cannabis, because let's face it, it's in the news, it's all over the place, it's on the internet. To make believe that it's not happening by not talking about it is not doing our kids a service. So it's important for us to discuss with the children how important it is to come of age before you can experiment with something like cannabis. How to do harm reduction, preventative measures. So we really go out into the community and help people understand how to work with cannabis and the appropriate uses of it and why it's not appropriate for children. So I'm going to leave my information here as a resource. I have, display materials, but I don't think this is really the right forum for it, so I'm not going to bring them out. But I just want to thank you for your time, and if anyone has any questions, I'm happy to.
Sure. A number of residents have asked me as to what security measures, what safety measures do you take at your facility?
At the dispensary, you have to be buzzed in to come in. So we have a security person on staff at all times. And basically, when you come, you are buzzed in through the front door. It's always locked, so you're buzzed in, and then you have to present your documentation before you're allowed through the second set of doors. So we try to make it look as comforting as possible, but really it's just a disguise for the security measures. There's it really rivals a casino. When you walk in, everything's on camera, everything is patched into the DOH. Same thing with our vehicles. Everything in real time is dispatched to the Department of Health, so they in real time can see where the vehicles are, and they can look at the cameras at any given time to see in the med room, in the lobby, in the consulting area, and even in the back hallway, and also outside the perimeter of the facility. So everything is on complete 360 view to the Department of Health, and we have to keep that on backup for a certain, like 90 days or 3 months, I think it is. So it's very secure, and actually I can say, I just want to commend the board here on your AV capabilities. I've been to many board meetings because I've done a lot of work with the casino projects in 2013, 2014. I've been to many board meetings, so I want to commend you on your technical abilities.
Any other questions? Councilman Beal?
How will the legalization of marijuana in New York State affect the business model of Sativa?
The business model of Sativa?
Yes.
Well, we hope that, bless you, we hope that at least, and I can speak for our organization and not the rest of the 10 that are licensed, and my personal view is I hope that the 10 registered organizations that are approved for medical use are allowed to lead the way in the adult use market, because as we've seen in other states, they have not done this the right way. And it's very important that we lead with information, we lead with evidence, and we lead with education. To me, when you bypass that and allow anyone to just open a bakery or open up a shop somewhere, that you're going to miss all of those educational components. And to me, because of the federal prohibition of cannabis, we have not been able to fully study it. So you need the medical license holders to be able to lead the way in the adult use market, so that when adult use comes online, it's more of a lifestyle and wellness model and less that of a recreational, have a good time model. And if the legislation is put forth in such a way that doesn't allow the medical operators to operate in that space, I think it's going to be a very interesting landscape for all the municipalities to have to deal with, because then you're going to have a lot of issues with enforcement. I think once the medical companies are able to lead the way, we can work with town boards and we can work with the different police forces. I do educational programs for a lot of the police departments on what medical cannabis looks like, what medical patients look like. I think if we move away from that model, it's going to be very dangerous.
Let me clarify what you're saying. So you're saying that your personal opinion is that the medical marijuana dispensaries should be leading the way in the recreational market?
What I'm saying is, because the way we're set up in New York is that we're vertically integrated. We're forced to grow, produce, process, and dispense our products. If the adult use market just allows people to open up a dispensary without the chain of command of seed to sale, then it gets a little bit risky, and you don't know the qualifications of all the people who be holding licenses. So I think it's up to the 10 registered organizations to lead the way in showing the adult use market how to actually have their business model put together.
So my understanding, Sativa's business model, according to High Times Magazine in February of 2019, is that they are preparing for New York State to legalize recreational marijuana so they can sell it. So that tells me that our medical marijuana dispensary will be becoming a recreational marijuana dispensary if that happens. Is that true?
I can't speak for Ianthus per se, but I can say that most of the businesses that are in business in the cannabis space are hoping for adult use. That's where the market is. And I can also say that the medical landscape right now, none of the businesses are making any money because of the forced vertical integration. Most of the companies that have done business in the medical landscape have had to invest over $30 million for the growing, the lab analysis, all the equipment, all the staffing. It's a huge expense. And because of the restricted nature of the patient access of the program, there's 100,000 patients in the state of New York. Sativa's not even seen 2,000 yet. So there's a huge access issue where most of these multi-state operators or people doing business in New York have not been able to recover their investments that were legislated by the governor's office. So of course, most of the people who are trying to do business in the cannabis space are hoping for adult use because that means they can make their money back.
Okay.
So this is a business model for sure.
I understand that, but I'm not against medical marijuana for the purposes of those that need treatment. However, this entire situation, to me, seems like a backdoor for these types of dispensaries to enter a municipality, pre-legislation, and then be allowed to sell recreational marijuana, which circumvents the entire zoning process, because the zoning process categorizes this type of dispensary as a pharmaceutical type of location, not a recreational type of location. And this is not personal. I do respect the economic investment and the capitalist aspects of trying to make money. I get that. But as an elected official, we have to be sensitive to the fact that we have residents already that are saying, how stupid are you for allowing a medical marijuana dispensary to come in pre-June of 2019 when the rumor is the state of New York is going to legalize recreational marijuana, and now these medical dispensaries are going to become recreational dispensaries. So that's the position I'm in right now, and I'm sure you can understand why that's a concern for those that are elected by people in a town, especially folks that live near this particular location. The question I would have to follow up is, what is the difference between medical marijuana as it is created versus recreational marijuana as it is created?
Okay, so I completely respect your position and I understand why you're asking me that. So I just want to acknowledge that we're in agreement here. I live in Orange County, and I also, if I was living nearby a dispensary, would have the same concerns. That's why it's very important for the elected officials to lead the charge in educating their community about the differences of medical and recreational use. So when Massachusetts legalized adult use, there's a dispensary in Great Barrington. What's that, like an hour and change from here? When you go up there and visit, all of the cars in the parking lot have New York license plates, and everyone waiting online, which is 2 hours before they open, are from New York State.
For recreational or for
For
medical?
recreational.
Okay.
So people, percentage-wise of the population, are already consuming cannabis.
And then they're driving from there.
Well,
back to
they're
New
not
York.
driving there to consume it, they're driving there to buy it and bring it
Well,
home.
that's where the big problem is in Colorado, with driving using cannabis. And that's a
Well-
concern that I have for a town that
Let's
has
get back to your
40,000
original question and the difference between medical and adult use, because what's important to note is that a lot of people are using cannabis anyway. And in New York State, there's the largest illicit market for cannabis in the entire world, not the United States, in the entire world. We are outsmoking Pakistanis in New York City. So the numbers and the volume of illicit cannabis that's being sold in New York State is in the billions of dollars. So what's important to note about that is that regulation is so important in this space. And because I work for a medical company, I know what lab analysis looks like. So I'm going to give a brief overview of really important critical information for you to be able to take to your constituents. Cannabis is what's called a bioaccumulator. It pulls minerals and great things out of the soil, which makes it very healthy. It also pulls toxins and contaminants out of the soil. When you use cannabis that's been, in Europe they use hemp to plant in brownfields where there's been chemical spills and things to clean and purify the soil so that you can then grow tomatoes and other crops that you can eat. The important thing to note is that if you use the wrong chemicals to grow your cannabis and then you're selling that on the black market, then people can really get sick from that. So the important thing to note in New York, why it's so important to legalize for adult use, is that people can smoke clean cannabis, or they can use products that are made from safe cannabis. People are using it anyway. And to turn a blind eye to that is
I'm
really.
not turning a blind eye to it.
Yeah, no, I
Trust
mean,
me.
Well-
yeah, and
That's not-
I'd like to interject for a second, because,
Yeah.
I mean, that's a greater issue. We're talking about our town issue. And in terms of the model for this type of business, we have no precedent for that. So we are not aware of what the adverse effects are.
Right.
What is going to be brought into our community if people start coming here. We become a magnet for people, as a satellite for people who are looking for that type of product. So as much as you're saying what you're saying, there still is that unknown there. And as elected officials, we need to make sure that we protect the community from this, because once the adverse effects are there, then we have to deal with the aftermath, and that could be an issue for us. And I think that Councilman Beal's concerns are certainly relevant in that regard.
Yep.
And I think that you're talking about a greater overall issue, but that's not necessarily a concern for this town. The concern for this town is whether it should be here, not whether it should be regulated other places or overall. And that's what our concern is, and I think that's what Councilman Beal's concern is, and I think that he feels that and I kind of agree, we're taking this lightly because we assume that this is just going to be used for medical marijuana use for certain residents or people in the community who are ill and need the product, versus people who are going to use it for more recreational uses, which could create other issues if we have that in our community.
Understood.
So the question is, how did this happen? I mean, I don't understand, and Jim's not here, but, you know, within our existing zoning, we allow for medical marijuana dispensaries. So how, within our existing zoning, would we allow recreational
We wouldn't
marijuana?
under the current zoning.
Are we sure?
Well, that's what I understand, but no, I think it's a legitimate question we have to look into.
Because, and don't take this personally, I understand where you're coming from, and I appreciate your business model. And I don't necessarily have a problem with a person sitting at home in their backyard doing whatever they're doing in their backyard, as long as it's not hurting anybody else. Don't get me wrong. But there is data out there to suggest, okay, that there are major impacts and issues associated with recreational marijuana being dispensed within certain densities and populations. So that's where I'm coming from with this. And then just my last question, just back to what I said, what is the difference between medical marijuana as it is created versus recreational marijuana as it is created? My understanding is the only difference is that the medical marijuana has to have a maximum amount of THC and it has to be labeled, and the recreational marijuana can be the same content, my understanding is, but it doesn't have to have the same parameters of labeling and things like that. Am I wrong?
It depends on the legislation in each state. So in New York currently, the maximum dose of THC in a medical product is 10 milligrams. In Massachusetts, you can get an edible that's 100 milligrams. So I think in New York, they've already kind of caught on to that and are making sure that the labeling requirements are in tune with the medical requirements, because that's the only way that you can ensure efficacy and standardization in the dosing. And I think that that's one thing that New York has gotten right so far in the drafts of the bills that I've read, is the labeling and the requirements as such. The difference is in medical is that flower is not allowed, so you can't just buy a bag of cannabis that you would do on the street. In the recreational setting, you would be able to do that. Now, the difference and the implications that makes for a medical patient, I'd like to highlight, because this is very important. The medical products, because we have $30 million facilities that have to make start to finish all these products, and you're removing the flour from everything, everything's processed into a refined oil, everything's dosed and standardized. This costs a lot of money to make. When you have the flour, you have somebody who's on a fixed income who's getting Social Security, and they can go and buy something for $50 that normally the dosing would cost them $200 because of all the refinement. So there's an implication for people on fixed incomes and patients who are in low income and people who perhaps are not even employed and using opiates or heroin for that matter. There's a 25% reduction rate in opiate use in states that have medical cannabis. So the recreational implications are broadening the spectrum of products and lowering the prices for people who are also medical patients. And as long as there's a pharmacist on duty in the medical space, just like we have in each of our dispensaries by law, then there's patients can come and buy a recreational product, but still do that under the guidance of their doctor or their pharmacist.
Well, I appreciate you answering my questions. Thank you.
Thank you for asking.
Thanks.
So in any field, we know there's abuses and things don't go well, you know, alcohol is abused and such. What abuses do you see in the recreational marijuana field?
Well, I think the abuses that I've seen are stemming from ignorance and not being educated about the products. Usually it's young kids where they're using concentrates and things like that. Really what I've seen all over the country are people getting away from opiates and other pharmaceutical medications and then liberating themselves from taking drugs altogether. And cannabis, despite its reputation as being a gateway drug, has been a gateway for exiting the harnesses of opiates and heroin. And then people are able to go with their doctor's guidance off of cannabis completely. So to me, the abuses are usually just by kids who have access to that sort of thing. And they, you know, just like they're smoking a cigarette at a party or they're drinking out of a keg at a party. It's the same sort of thing that kids experiment with. And that's part of our model, is to educate parents on how to talk to their kids about it.
I think also we've been telling and teaching our people, our children, smoking is not good for you. You will die of cancer. It's a proven fact. Whereas years before, everybody smoked back in the 30s. So I have some concerns when we're pushing legalization of smoking marijuana versus the health implications.
So there's a host of delivery methods, including smoking, although smoking a joint is really the least likely to be recommended by any doctor. What they do now is they take the flower and they put it in what's called a vaporizer, and that heats the flower up to a certain temperature that prevents combustion, so you're not burning the plant material. It actually just heats the flower up to the right temperature where you're getting all the cannabinoids, you're getting the decarboxylation, you're getting all the terpenes, which are very therapeutic together. And then they're not combusting into flower, so there's no smoke, there's no paper, there's no inhalation of combusted material. So that's actually the safest way to smoke it. It's just you're not rolling a joint like you would at a
But
party.
you said the key word, smoking.
It's inhalation.
Okay, and we're telling and we're teaching our children and people not to smoke. It's been outlawed in bars, restaurants, public places. So where's this going to be smoked? In somebody's home? Is that the only place? Or is it or are the laws going to change that's going to allow them to smoke in public places?
In
at
the medical
detriment of other
space,
people?
in the regulations are written in such a way where patients are not permitted to open their medicine anywhere but their own home, and that's the only place they can consume it.
I'm not talking about medical, I'm talking about recreation.
If you'd like me to speculate, Councilwoman, I can do that, but I don't know what the law is going to say. It looks like they're going to allow social consumption sites.
Yeah, I think one of the issues with that is that it's very difficult to ascertain the long-term effects because it hasn't been legal very long. So to really do studies that would be sufficient to basically monitor or gauge what the negative health effects would be probably are a little specious at best at this point. You know, not that, you know, we couldn't come with some suppositions, but I don't really think there's enough research there to make that determination that there could be certain health effects similar to tobacco and things of that nature.
This is why it's so important to legalize and regulate and study. Because of the federal prohibition, we have not been able to do the studies, and people are smoking anyway. So I think it's very important for municipalities like Wappingers to take a look at that and allow it so that it can be studied.
Well, that's true, although the other side of the coin is that once you do it and it becomes legal and then the negative effects later on come out, like tobacco smoking, then you've already have people who
And
have been
alcohol.
negatively affected by it.
Right? And alcohol,
So,
right?
But if we were here today, now debating whether or not we should legalize tobacco, we probably would have a different take on it.
Hindsight.
Well, we're certainly not going to, change the minds of the state legislature, but there are certainly a lot of unknowns here, and I think that's why it's good that we were able to ask you some pointed questions, because as we knock on doors, we're getting asked these questions. And I can honestly tell you, I have felt blindsided by this entire approach, of having what I thought was going to be a medical-only dispensary enter this town, and now to find out, and it's I'll cite it. It's in High Times Magazine, February 11th, 2019. Sativa's Bite of the Big Apple talks about their business model, and this, folks, is not a medical-only business model, as you said. And now we have this location in our town. How many other dispensaries are in Dutchess County?
0.
None. So anyone in Dutchess County will be coming to our town potentially for recreational marijuana because of the legislation
Well,
that could
assuming
occur.
we don't control it through zoning.
I'm not so sure we can once they're
Right.
there. I'm not sure how that
We
can
have to
happen.
check.
But if it were up to me, we would be able to visit that because, again, this is a situation where it was bait and switch if this really happens the way it looks like it's going to happen.
I think we have to monitor it and take it under advisement and look at it, Bill. How did it come in? We zoned that earlier administration for medical, or what?
No,
was
it's
the
just,
issue?
I believe,
I don't know.
it's a highway business zone, I believe, which is allows pharmacies.
Okay.
I believe that's the zoning. So when the zoning was written for pharmacies, certainly this was not something that was included in the conversation. But let me say it again: the medical side of it, I respect, and I know people that have benefited from a last resort approach. My fear is, and I'm not using the gateway argument because I don't fully believe that, but my fear is access. Okay, we have an issue right now in this region where one can easily argue that access to opiates has led to a crisis. Okay. I'm not trying to draw a total parallel here, but those that are over 21 or 18, whatever the age is going to be, that put it in their medicine cabinet and now their kids get a hold of it, the same situation potentially could occur with abuse. I'm certainly not implying that it's to the same level of, same level of illness as an opiate abuse, but just any type of access that should not occur, I want to make sure that we're doing our best to prevent. And that's basically where I'm coming from on this. I happen to live very, very close to your location, and my neighbors have expressed concerns about what's going to happen if the law passes in New York. So that's why I've asked these questions, and again, I appreciate your response.
Yeah,
I
no,
think
thank you.
the
You've been very
whole-
the
thoughtful
whole
and
board
answered
here
all
is
our
fully
questions, so
aligned
we
with your
appreciate that.
position.
I agree, and I also invite you, I'm happy to set up a working session with you and any other concerned parties of the community, and I can bring our medical director where we can talk about medical-based evidence and talk about your concerns about what a recreational situation might be for the town of Wappinger, and I can bring our management team to discuss that to make sure that
Are you going to give us any notice if in an event this law passes and you decide to actually do this business model before you enact it, or are we just going to find out later on?
if that's what you'd like, I'm happy to,
Well, I think
I'm
that's-
happy to
Yeah,
stay
I
in,
think that might be a
I'm
good
in
idea.
communication with Supervisor
Then we'd like
Thurston by
prior
email,
notice.
so I'm happy to do that.
Right.
And I think that it's our responsibility to make sure that we're good neighbors and good partners in the community. So I think before we do anything, I would like to make sure that we all sit down together and discuss what your concerns are and make sure that we can mitigate whatever issues that you may think are important to the community. And I'm, again, happy to hold a session and educate the community about these.
And I think, as Councilman Beal indicated, we have actually seen a growing issue throughout the town with respect to other drug usage. And I think that actually we get more requests even for security, police, monitoring, having police stationed out at a lot of our, parks and recreation areas. So I think we have a very legitimate, concern that I think every one of us has been asked about that, and certainly why I wanted to start a dialogue with the board and have you come and listen to what our concerns are. So I appreciate you coming tonight.
I appreciate, may I give you each
Sure.
a brochure?
Sure, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, well, thanks very much, Colleen. The next item is actually, I think, incorrect here. Schlott House change order. We do have a resolution, Resolution 2019-123, so we'll talk about that, defer that to that point in time. Now I'd ask for Jessica, to come up and talk about Community Day, and then, you can also summarize Memorial Day if you'd like to.
Yes. I had already discussed with the supervisor, there's a certain part that's listed on the agenda that we'd like to defer for a private conversation. We like for that to be a surprise.
Right, so just clarify for the record what.
The Grand Marshal.
Yeah, nothing-
So,
nothing
yeah, nothing
secret here.
hinky,
Yeah,
nothing illegal.
Just
It's
more
just,
No,
appropriate.
and it's
Yes.
more, because it will
Yeah.
be like a surprise. We're trying to do a few
Yes.
things, actually, Community
Yeah.
Day, to, like our citizen
Yeah.
awards and so forth, so
I would
be
say,
surprise.
we could probably handle that through an email.
An email.
a group
Yes.
email.
Yeah, I
Absolutely.
think that's right.
I'm sure the
I
public
just-
won't mind if
Yeah.
we're,
yeah, I don't need someone's cousin calling the person and going, so I just saw on TV. that
They're eventually going to find out.
Yeah.
this.
Yes,
Of course.
yes. So for Community Day, we are full speed ahead. I think I've probably been saying it exactly that way for about 3 months now, which means that we haven't stopped. It is rapidly approaching. Tomorrow night, Councilman Beal and I have our meeting with the emergency services agencies that will be involved within Community Day. I've also set up a couple of steps of meetings with the organization in the village that does recreation, because we definitely need them on board. People power is just about the most important thing to pulling off this event successfully. So we've been going very hard online with our advertising. It's on about every community calendar that you could stumble across on the internet within a 100-mile radius. We are going very strongly on our Facebook. We posted it and have already had something like 25,000 impressions and views, which is a record for us. So that's very exciting. We're also implementing some paid online advertising and possibly some radio advertising as well for the event. We are looking to draw. We're looking to draw from more than just our wonderful 27,000 people. We're looking to draw from further around the county and beyond. Outside of that, I'm planning at the next town board meeting, once we've had our meeting with the emergency services agencies, one of the more costly aspects of the event, which isn't necessarily something that we've really ever had to factor in the past, is additional emergency services staffing. So at the next town board meeting, I will be coming back with our full estimate of that cost, as well as we'll be close enough to the event that I'll be able to give you the, hopefully, finalized spending for the event. And that's really all I have on Community Day for now. What questions do we have that you might want me to have ready for you at the next
Where are
meeting?
you,
Anything?
may have missed it. Where are you with vendors?
With vendors, they are starting to steadily roll in. It was a little slow at the beginning. We actually got a visit today from a very reputable vendor who's worked with East Fishkill and is going to be bringing a pizza trailer, which is something we've never had before. They're starting to roll in now at a rate of about 2 or 3 per day, actually. So we're anticipating, not going to go crazy, but anticipating at least double of what we had at our old site. And at our old site, we had 40. So our goal is to hit 100, and I'm hopeful. I'm very hopeful that we'll be able to do it.
So, as Jessica mentioned, tomorrow we're going to be meeting with the emergency service agencies. Some of the concerns that will be addressed tomorrow is, having a 4th of July fireworks display on 4th of July weekend, which actually is July 6th, right?
Yeah.
Is going to bring potentially a lot more people. We want to make sure that we have sufficient personnel to make sure that folks aren't parking where they shouldn't be, make sure access is still there for emergency purposes. During the parade itself, the Village of Wapengers Falls has, I believe, 2 units on during the day, so we may have to supplement with the town patrol unit, which is nothing out of the ordinary than we've done before. The sheriff's office has additional resources that may be available also that we can use. My office at the county also has those variable message boards that we'll talk about tomorrow that we can.
What about an ambulance being available?
We'll have an ambulance on site for the event. Mobile Life was invited to the meeting in addition to MSTAR, since the parade lineup and the parade itself take place in the village boundaries.
You know what, could you, just for their reference, could you say what agencies are going to be joining us, just so that,
So I'll tell you who was invited.
Okay.
I'm still waiting on a couple confirmations, but obviously the Houstonville Fire Department, Town of Wappinger Ambulance, which is MSTAR, Dutchess County Sheriff's Office, Village of Wappingers Falls Police. I held off on the state police right now because I spoke to Sergeant Weatherwax, and I want to see what resources we need first before we request anything specifically from them. But I do anticipate them having a presence the night of the fireworks to assist with traffic. What other agencies did we talk about? I think that's it. All Mobile Life and MSTAR. So tomorrow night we're going to have representatives from hopefully all those agencies. And really tomorrow night we want to talk about the scope of the event. We want to introduce them to what we're doing and make sure that they understand that this truly could become a mass gathering on Saturday into Saturday night. And when you start approaching those types of numbers, even if it's only for 30 minutes, we want to make sure that we have a plan to get people in for the fireworks and get people out. The good news about this location is there's multiple ins and outs. There have been other events in southern Dutchess County, like the Bowden Park fireworks back in the day, that had one way in and one way out.
took hours to get
Yeah.
out of there?
So we want to make sure we have a traffic plan in place to get everybody out so that they leave with a smile on their face. We also want to make sure we have contingency plans in place in the event of adverse weather. The number one threat to these types of gatherings outdoors are no-notice weather events. So we want to make sure we have a plan in place in case people have to shelter in place. In a situation like that, you would have to have everyone go to their vehicles. We have to have a mechanism to make sure that we can tell everybody that. But we don't anticipate that. We anticipate a beautiful weekend. We want to make sure we plan for the worst and hope for the best.
I assume the other fire departments will be on standby or involved, like Garner, particularly out of
Oh,
the
yeah, I'm sorry.
village. And
Wappingers Falls Fire Department's also going to be in attendance since it takes place in the village. Obviously, Nahacketsack's going to have situational awareness because if something happens elsewhere in the town while the event is going on, the chiefs will work out those specifics. But we want to make sure that everyone has situational awareness because, like I said, this has the potential of being the biggest event we've had. So we want to make sure that everyone is on the same page.
Absolutely. So then the only other thing, if no one has any additional questions about Community Day, is to say a very big thank you for Memorial Day. We used a different format. Ralph Holt was not able to MC it this year, so this was the first time that we've ever done kind of a round-robin MC format for the event in which all 5 of our town board members took a role in the event, and you guys did a great job. It's the first time we've done it like that, and I think that it really worked out well. So
I think it went great. I'd like to make a motion that we buy those weights to put on flagpoles.
yes, sir.
Yes.
I'm seriously making that motion.
Yes.
I'll second
No, I
Second. All in favor?
Yes.
Aye. Any nays or abstentions?
Please just get that done.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you're right. It's always a problem.
Every event.
It's been 13 years of me watching flags fall down.
Yes.
So
And then we gave some Boy Scouts sunburn. You know,
it was
they
good
just
that they
stand
did
there.
that. I think the one Cub Scout didn't get the memo that when you're saluting, you also still have to hold the flag.
Yes.
The flag fell down. But I thought you did a
We
great
were
job,
sweet.
Jessica. It was organized. It was great to see Ralph Holt there. And I talked to
Yes.
Councilman Cousins before that earlier in the day, and I said, you know, if Ralph shows up, we need to make sure that he is sitting with us and that he is obviously mentioned a couple times, which everyone
did.
Everyone obviously did that.
And he tried not to sit with us, and we
Of course,
tied him down.
Of course,
Yes.
you know, that event obviously, you know, it can be a little hot, it can be a little warm. Everyone seemed to be comfortable, and the approach that was used, I thought actually flowed pretty good. I'll be honest with you. Everyone getting up there and taking the reins for 15 minutes. It worked out perfect. We got to the moment of silence while the pastor was speaking.
Right.
So that worked out perfect.
And the gentleman did not have a clock or stopwatch or anything in his hands. And he said, at I'm not even kidding, it clicked over on my phone, 2:59 to 3 o'clock, and he said, let us now have a moment of silence.
Yeah, Reverend Hunt did a great job.
You couldn't have planned it better.
You know, this was,
So-
I mean, everything about it was pretty much one of the best ones we've had. It was well organized, it was to the point, it wasn't too short or too long, I think it was just about the right duration. The weather was perfect. We had a full crowd of residents who, once again, always support our veterans in our events, which always makes me proud. So I can't really say anything other than accolades for everything and everybody that participated in that event.
And we fact-checked Mike's speech, and it came out fine. No, Mike,
As I knew it would.
Because he fact-checked it twice before he made it.
He's not kidding.
He did fact check.
so, thank you, Jessica,
All right, we're
for
all-
all your hard work. Also, the committee's, hard work. Steve, you did a great job in getting the folks out there to help set up. And also, thanks to Jessica's father. He was out there as always, sort of like Joey's father in the Sports Museum in Car and West. So extend our appreciation on behalf of the board to your dad as well, and to the others, okay? Thank you.
He's watching, I promise.
Okay.
So. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. The next, actually, I'll combine the two of them, ask Highway Superintendent Bettina, to talk about the road paving. We had, had a resolution last time, still left something to be discussed, and also the weight issue, and especially since Mr. Haran's returned from the Zoning Board of Appeals. He had playing, two supporting roles tonight, so we missed you, but
You
welcome
timed
back.
that exit perfect.
Yeah. Yeah, you did. Yeah. We have a number of to-dos for you to look into.
we'll send you a couple
So
memos.
We'll send you the memo. Anyway, Mr. Bettina, please.
Thank you, Supervisor and Board. Number one, thank you very much for signing 284, which allows me to move forward with the paving. We need that as a document between the board and my office. If you look at what you signed, we are paving 2.58 miles at the moment and spending $753,600. I have remaining funds of $365,399, and the monies from the CHIPS and the bond from last year. Typically, we do at least 5 miles. I will say that last year was historical. We did over 7. Obviously, I've got roads going back to 91 that haven't been taken care of, and then my administration been trying to take care of. We've done about over 17 miles to date since I've been in office. So we're trying to catch up and take care of our roads, which are a very important asset. However, that being said, we have about $365,000 left, and obviously I've given you almost 9 miles of road.
Let me just interrupt for 1
Yes,
second.
sir.
That's based on the original budgeted amount of $220,000 for CHIPS money.
Right.
I believe we received about $50,000 more than that.
Okay.
So we have to, I had sent an email to Frederick to get the updated numbers. So I think there may be 50,000 or so more.
Okay.
Actually, I have the letter here from the state, from my association with excuse me, I think I have it here, with the Highway Superintendent Association. They did give us a little bit more money from Albany, which was nice, but I'm sorry.
Typically, the board, takes a conservative approach on
Right.
CHIPS money, so.
Right, we budgeted 220. There was an additional, the amount you're referring to, I think had a different acronym, didn't it?
Well, there's Pave New York.
Right.
So the CHIPS money is typically around 220.
Yeah.
Pave New York, there was emergency weather-related or
Right.
something which was awarded last year, approximately 29. This year we didn't get.
They took that money away from us.
Okay, so this year, the town of Wappinger received $196,515 and Pave New York funds of $44,856, so it's approximately $20,000 more. So,
All right.
The
Well, at
point
least-
I'm trying to make to the board, to make up that minimum of 5 miles, that's from the funds that were previously approved. I did give you almost 9 miles of road, and like I said, they date back to 91 in some cases. It's up for you to make some of the decisions as to what you want. I mean, I've given roads, every one of those is fine with me. But take a look at them and just tell me what you like, and, you know, we'll try to add up to stay within the funds that you have at the moment. I would suggest other funds being appropriated, and these roads will not change, they're there.
Out of the roads that we've already done and the ones that remain, are there any that you recommend at this point for any particular
Well,
reason?
one thing I want to explain, I mean, from someone who's been in the contracting business building roads, the longer the road, the more money, the less is spent actually. I mean, if you go longer, it costs me actually less, as crazy as it may sound. The shorter roads cost us really more money by the time the machine's up mobilizing and working it, okay? So a longer road would be a little better expenditure, but nonetheless, I understand you're all in wards and you all have constituents, and everybody, you know, it's like spring came and my road's not clean and there's dirt where I wanted to. Well, it's 28,000 people, 284 streets, so we're trying to get there as quick as we can, and Mother Nature just doesn't seem to, my name's Bettina, not Barnum and Bailey, I don't have that tank to put over the town. So we're trying hard to take care of drainage and repairs, but I've got to get this blacktop going because we're not the only municipality. I mean, the
How
other
many
towns-
do you still have that are from the 1990s?
Well, Gold Road I know is one, and I was gonna mention that one as a possibility, if that's something we could do, because I do know that that's from the mid-90s, if I remember correctly.
97.
Supervisor, I can actually tell you, I do have a catalog of roads that I do when I came in office. I didn't have them, but if you just give me a moment,
Because I think that's where
I
we
think I have it.
priority, and I don't
Yeah.
disagree, Mike. I
Yeah.
think,
Yeah.
If that's the mid, 97, was it?
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's a $320,000 road.
Yes.
But
right,
that's what I think
because
what he
it's a
was
longer
saying, it
road.
may be cost
we have
effective if we.
360, we could cover it, but I'm just saying here.
Right, but I only have one road in Ward 1 that's on the 284 that was supposed to be done last year.
Right, and that's being done.
Correct, but I have no roads.
No others,
I have no
yes.
roads from this year at all that are on that 284 except for Woodland Court, which was a last year project.
Yeah, what happened was we had that pipe break, and we swapped that off and paved that other road, is what we did, which is
What-
really the same.
What other roads, are there any from the 90s, Bill, on that
Well,
list
I'm
for
going
Ward
through
1?
bills right
Old Troy
now.
Road and Curry.
Curry Road is one of them, which is a road
That's
that's in there.
$40,000 and Old Troy is 107.
I mean, Curry Road, I got Curry that's already in and being figured, that was done in 1993. I'll go through these real quick for you. I mean, actually, we did a catalog of 2,600 catch basins, guardrails, I have them all. We cataloged everything we have on our roads. But Airport Drive was 91. The road's not that bad, believe it or not. Anvil Court is 99.
Yeah, let's stick to the ones in the 90s if we could for now.
That's what I'm
Well,
saying.
Bill, you had
I
Quarry and Old
97.
Troy, right?
Curry and Old Troy.
Curry, I mean, not Quarry.
Yeah.
Astor Hill was 95. You've got Baker's 95. You have Bel Air Lane is 01. Brennan Place is 94. Bugalow Lane is 98. Brook Hollow Court, 92.
So Curry Road and Gold together would be 361, 183, 50. And based on the paved New York additional money, there's 21,371.50 more. So added to the 365, 399.
So we could probably almost do his two roads and Gold Road and pretty much call it a day. The two roads
Well,
he
with the funds
mentioned,
that
the
we
first
have,
road.
almost
With the
like
funds we
Curry, I
have.
have one
Yeah,
road.
yeah.
You might have to appropriate something out of fund balance to make up the difference.
Like what,
but
$20,000 or something like
Something
that?
like
Which is
that.
probably I'm not trying to say it's a minuscule amount, but based upon the number of roads we do and its cost.
Well, again, I just said earlier, we
No,
only,
Old Troy Road is 107.
Oh, I thought he said it was 44.
That's
That's Curry.
That's Curry.
That's
Oh,
when
okay,
it
that
was
was
done, that's
Curry.
when it was,
Yeah.
the 04 was, talking about the money is 107 a year. All I'm saying is you're only doing 2.58 miles. And we typically always, well, we try to do at least 5. And this is working, it's 753,000, we're 600. You've got 365, 399 left of the funds of CHIP from last year that was allocated. All I'm saying is some more funds are going to be allocated to do at least 5 miles. And I did give you a whole bevy of roads to take a look at. I mean, any one of those is fine with me. You just need to know that you're balancing your wards and you want to get it. But I agree Mike Gold would be a good road. Bill, I got a problem with Curry. They need that. And, but there's other roads too. And I was trying to read those off. When I came in office, we did all the guardrails, the manholes. I mean, I was a little stunned to find out we have 2,600 manhole catch basins that we have to take care of, 2,600. So that's cleaning them, taking care of them, making sure they don't flood, you know, repairing them. One of the things I am going to be coming back to the board, we looked at easements.
Right.
I mean, and we discussed that, Dick. There was quite a bit of money needed to have actual easements surveyed.
Right.
So anyway, the point was, I want to belabor the point. You have that extra money. If you want to pick out a couple roads and deliberate, we can add that to the 284 and move forward with it. And then come up with some extra funds
But, you know,
for extra funds.
from what I understand, we wouldn't need to decide tonight. We still have a little time because you're going to be starting the paving, what, in another week or so?
Yes, well, I'm going to be
And
sitting
then
with
that's
yes,
going to
well,
take some time, so
Absolutely.
maybe, you know, at the
Supervisor,
June
you're correct.
meeting, we can look at it.
You
and
allowed me.
perhaps also in connection with some other funding, you know, Bill, I would think capital funding, you know, where we've talked about, you know, whether it's baseball field, maybe there's some other ways we look at it. But since tonight, it seems like that we understand what is needed, and then I
Right.
think
You
we can
actually, by
decide.
signing
I think
this,
that's a good idea.
Supervisor, by signing this document, even though
Do
you
you
approved
agree?
it, I couldn't do anything until you signed
No, I
this.
understood.
So we're ready to go.
You
Bill,
could do,
go ahead.
You could do Gold Road and Curry Road for 361, 182.
Okay, Bill, if that's,
I mean, you could do that right now and put it on the 284.
I have no problem.
I'll make
with
that motion.
And I'll second that. Just get it on the 284 to get this rolling, and then we have that money now.
Right.
If we need further discussion on future financing, we can have that at a future meeting, but I think right now, if we can solidify this and get these two in place,
that would be good.
we'll add them to the 284. This way he's good to go.
I have a motion?
Yes, I'm
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any nays or abstentions? Motion passes.
Okay, so we'll amend, I mean, you did sign a 284 last,
So,
Jimmy will amend that,
so we'll do a second amendment, and I'll get it to the town clerk.
to have it signed.
Okay.
And it'll be signed.
But we'll have to
The board-
sign the
board can
second
sign it
amendment, you know,
at
the
this
board's
one.
based on this resolution.
Yeah.
then-
You
know,
got that, Joe?
And then we'll make a
Okay.
determination as to additional.
No, we can talk some more on.
In June.
okay.
Again, you do have the roads that I gave you, so, and you just have to come up
Okay.
with the difference of the funds.
Fine.
We would be looking for, you know, more money up to, we have 2.58 miles, so you figure out what other roads to hit.
Okay.
Hit the
All right.
five.
What-
That's up to you.
Yeah.
I mean,
What about the weight issue? Jim, you had sent some questions, I think, related
So-
to weight. So why don't you discuss that briefly?
So,
Yeah.
the town actually has a lot more control over trucks than it does speed limits. The town board has, under the vehicle and traffic law, the ability to establish truck routes, set weight limits on roads. The one caveat is that the weight limits do not apply to weight or truck routes do not prohibit deliveries and pickups. So if someone, you know, for example, down in the Chelsea area, you know, trucks are gonna, River Road in front of the lumberyard, you can't prohibit trucks. If you put a weight restriction on that portion of the road, any trucks going to and from the lumberyard or any trucks coming to and from the DEP site, they are allowed to use the road notwithstanding any restrictions that the town board places on it, because that's the only way you can get there. Now, with respect to some of the other roads in Chelsea, they're not necessarily through roads. You know, there's no commercial establishments on those roads. And again, if there was delivery trucks going to those roads, they would be, you know, permitted to go there moving trucks or UPS trucks or, you know, whatever deliveries that an individual that's located on the street has an absolute right to get deliveries. The one thing is that I had sent an email from the constituent who had some questions, and I think one of the things is, I think Chelsea is an appropriate location where I think it's easier to establish a truck route than it is for weight restrictions, because if you're gonna put weight restrictions on, you're gonna have to place signs on every street that has a weight restriction, and that becomes a little bit cumbersome. The one thing that I think needs to be looked at is the turn there at the bottom of, I guess it's Broadway.
Right.
You know, it's a very strange.
It's a hard cut.
But it has that little medium,
Right.
you know, triangle or
You know, I
something
don't,
like that.
and I guess the other question is, I'm not sure exactly where the county highway jurisdiction ends on that road. I don't know if it goes to that point or not. It's somewhat unclear. And again, the town has the ability to establish a truck route on the county road. So this town board has the ability to set truck routes and weight restrictions on county roads. Obviously, we have to coordinate with Dutchess County DPW with respect to that. And, you know, I think in this case, at least in the Chelsea area, that's something that has to be looked at. But, you know, it's a challenging area, and there is, you know, a fair amount of truck traffic. The DEP, when they did the plan,
Traffic
the
management.
construction site, they established a traffic management plan which routed their trucks down that road. I've looked through the town. We don't seem to have a copy of the traffic management plan in town hall. We requested a copy
Does
from...
Commissioner Balkine have that available?
Yes.
Yes, so we requested a copy from them, and Tom Harvey from CPL has also reached out to DEP to get a copy of it. They did, when they developed the traffic management plan, and as part of the environmental impact study, they did a fairly detailed analysis of some of the traffic patterns in the Chelsea hamlet. So I don't know if they necessarily got into, they were looking at issues predominantly related to noise and some, but, you know, in this case, some of the issues are more related to, and I know they did something regarding widths, because one of the studies that they were looking at was getting a tunnel boring machine through on the highway.
Correct.
So I know they did some width analysis on the roads. Somewhere in there may be buried something as far as swings for, you know, the vehicles and stuff.
So what would be the next steps for us? Because the board wants to keep this moving. I think we have
So-
a real
I agree,
interest to.
yes.
I think get a copy of the once we get a copy of the traffic management plan, we can look at it, you know, a little bit further. The one thing would be, you know, I think, you know, it seems like using the truck route that was established by DEP as a truck route for all truck traffic through the hamlet may make sense. But, you know, the one thing is that, you know, that would continue up to 9 days, so.
Right.
One of the things that the VTL requires is that any truck route provides you access to state, you know, to the state highway system.
I actually, we had a meeting down there with the county. We went over the county roads. I walked the county roads when they did the inspection. They'll be coming forth with a report regarding the condition and the work that's going to be done. Bob Balkine was kind of telling me he's going to send me the traffic plan. It's on a CD. Part of the thing was we came up with and looked at the speed in this county. It hasn't been checked, well, this county, our town, as it relates to the county roads. It's in 93. I mean, it's almost 30 years. The traffic is significant in that area going on. On the other side, we're waiting for that study. We did inspect, like I said earlier, we did inspect the roads and county roads. We looked at, the contractor did look at the DEP impacts of the road going up to the DEP station. We walked it, and they were going to come forth with their studies. They're going to be sent to us. Steve Gill from engineering is going to be sending us that disc, so we can take a look at it. I also understand, what I understand is when the planning board reviewed it, those signs, those work signs that say 30 miles an hour, were not from me. They were the county. They actually put it on the county, and they put the sign up by the DEP, which is supposed to be 30 miles an hour. Those roads are 40 and 45 miles an hour.
As Mr. Hand said, I understand, the speed, issue, and we do have a concern, but it sounded like that the truck route issue was, something that we had a lot more flexibility in
Yeah, we have
working on,
more-
although we do have the right to do something.
We have, right, more flexibility on the truck route issue, on the speeds. From the research that I did, the planning board, the plans that were approved by the planning board, which we have in Town Hall, show the truck routes and construction areas. They don't have any speed limits posted on the plans that were approved by the planning board. So if there are any speed limit restrictions, it would be in the traffic management plan.
Correct.
The only thing is the traffic management plan, it's unclear, it may just refer to when construction activity is going on in the right of way.
I don't know about that because I had a resident say to me that when it was a Sunday afternoon and he got pulled over for speeding
Okay,
and he got a ticket
so, I mean,
on Chelsea Road. And I'm like, well, the speed limit is 30 miles an hour. That's the law and that's what has to be obeyed.
That's what it is right now, based on the work
Right
going
now,
on.
right now. But again, I have residents that live close to where the work is being done, and the speed limit is 40 miles an hour right in front of where the construction takes place. And they're requesting that that be changed like the rest of the road to 30 miles an hour. And that has to be changed, and I don't know who can
That's-
change that.
New York State.
Okay, so how do we contact New York State to put
We
an
have-
additional
there's
sign up?
a form that we have to put in place. They do a speed
Will you
study.
take care of that? Well, I don't think we need a speed study right
New York
now,
State requires a speed study.
but they already have, they've already installed the signs
No,
on
that's-
Chelsea Road.
That's only during the construction of the DEP.
Right,
What's
and the
going on?
construction of DEP is for 10 years.
Well, yeah, I mean, ultimately, what's going to happen is the state's going to make that determination one way or the other. They're not necessarily going to do it or not do it. I had this issue on 376 a number of years ago, and basically, I was fighting to make that speed limit more uniform because, as Councilman Beal knows, because we were going over this as well, there were spots where it was 55, then it's 40, then it's 30, but the state, despite all of our arguments and all advocacy, and we met with the state and I had David Stolman involved, guess what? They said, no, we're not changing it. So I'm just letting you know. Well, I'm just letting you know, ultimately, the state's gonna make that decision. I'm just
I
explaining.
understand that, and thank you, Councilman Cosmas. However, the construction goes on in front of the waterworks right there. It's going on every day. There's cars going in and out. But it begs to differ from the residents that live there. Why is that section still 40 miles an hour when the rest is 30 set by the state? And why did they not put a sign there? Because that is a work zone.
Well, the state has, and I circulated it to the board, but there's a portion of Chelsea Road, and there's some distances in there, up to a point, and then I believe according to now seems to have been an order that was issued, which is not reflected in the regulations. So the New York State DOT regulations are what governs, and according to the New York State DOT regulations that are currently on the books, the speed limit for most of Chelsea Road is 45 miles an hour. So
I understand that.
right.
But my question is, they are doing this construction for 10 years.
Right, and again, the construction under the VTL, under the Manual of Uniform Traffic Control Devices, the constructions, so the speed limit gets reduced when there's work being done in the right-of-way. So that's what the traffic. So
Explain to me, then how do I explain to a resident when there was no construction going on that they still got his ticket for going 30 miles an hour because it was a work zone on a Sunday?
So that's
That's a problem.
Well, I mean, that's something you can fight, because if it's not a work zone,
It is a work zone. It's marked a work zone, 30 miles an hour. And that's what the cop said. It says 30 miles an hour. This is why you're getting a
Well, that's
ticket.
between the police officer and one thing the board's got to understand and the residents need to understand is the fact that the DOT, New York State, says it. I recommend, the board reviews it, the board recommends, there's a protocol. The Department of Transportation makes the decision on the speed. We recommend, we can do the studies, but it's very frustrating for all of us. And then after, same thing, I pave a road, oh, people are going fast now, the bump's under. We're not the police officers, we're here to maintain and repair it. But the speed limits, and I know it's frustrating because people don't want to hear it's the state of New York. Well, that's the law. Unfortunately, state of New York is the one that sets the standard. But we have to go through making the recommendation and, you know, yeah, call the assemblyman up, call Mr. Lawler up, call Sue Serino up, ask them to work with the people that try to help us out. There are elected officials up there. The issue is it's a very frustrating situation, but unfortunately, that's
Yeah, and that's why I provided that anecdote, because I don't necessarily agree with some of the state's decisions, but unfortunately, we can't do anything about that ultimate decision if we disagree with it. That's the only reason I was.
Well, we
In
need
fact,
to
just
make-
recently, out on Middle Bush Road, I showed it to Jim, and he's looking at it. We requested the speed to be lowered. The state says no. You know, we're not going to lower
We had to
that.
go to the
No,
county to get a light out.
Yeah.
I understand
But they're
that.
supporting it, but the state says no.
I understand that, but this construction is gonna go on for 10 years. I have somebody from the planning board. Am I right or wrong, Barbara? The construction there is supposed to be going on for 10 years, and the residents in that community are getting the brunt of the
So
problems.
I'll check, but like, based on the research that I've looked at, again, the construction zone speed limits are when work is going on. I'll see if there's any mechanism
Please,
to put it beyond
because
that, but
when I was on the planning board, I was told that that speed limit was gonna be there for 10 years, at
Okay.
least.
It's gonna be there for 10 years. That's-
But it's 30 miles an hour. But it's 40 in front of where the actual construction's going on, which makes no sense. I'm sorry. Thank you for listening.
Didn't we determine that the highway superintendent has the ability to create a work zone?
yes, but the MUTCD, basically you do that's what the traffic management plan is.
Could it be just miss signage?
That's what I think.
Was that,
Could it just be miss signage?
That's what I
You know,
think.
the guy's supposed to put up a sign, he didn't.
Right.
as far as the 30?
Yeah, if-
Well,
in the
we
work
don't,
zone.
right now, we don't have anything in town hall that shows it 30 miles.
We're trying to
So
find.
what
out
if we take a picture of the road and there's a sign on Chelsea Road?
Again, if you put a sign up that says 30 miles an hour and there's no authorization for a 30-mile-an-hour sign, it's unenforceable.
It says work zone.
It's gotta say, it's gotta be within the study that was done. We put the
Right.
signs up, and the other thing people have to understand is the fact that it's a state that has the authority. You don't have the authority, I don't have the authority. We can recommend, and then I suggest that the board maybe write a letter to their state and assembly people to see what they would do to help you out, because they get elected too.
Well, by the time we get the state to do something, the project will be complete.
Yeah, good point, Bill.
Yes.
This just goes along with what a wise old attorney told me once. If it makes sense, it's illegal. You're not the one I'm referring to.
I know.
You know
I
which
just
one.
want, I just
But it's
want-
true.
But I do want to tell you, the county, Steve, actually, Bob Balcon is sending this down with the study for us to see it, since we couldn't find our records, and that should help us out as far as speed and give us other information.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Obviously, during the construction, we have heavy truck traffic going through there. Do we know what's gonna happen when the construction project's over? Are they gonna be hauling heavy out of there as well?
Well, I have to be honest with you, Chris, there are tractor trailers of lumber going through there. The building is still going on, right now, building is moving along pretty well. I couldn't believe when we were walking the road, and I was walking with the lights of tractor trailers going through there. And I actually pulled in the yard, I'm like, what's going on? What's going on? It's business. So
Well,
there seems to be more than new normal there going on.
Well, you know, the lumber guys at max, they're gonna be 80,000, but the guys hauling the gravel, 120, that makes a big difference on the roads, so.
No, great.
But if they're delivering supplies or if they're servicing someone along the road, then any sort of weight limit
Doesn't apply.
wouldn't apply anyway.
That's right.
Those tractor trailers are well over 10,000 pounds.
I mean, the typical weight limits would apply, the regular axle weight limits
Right.
for the vehicles apply.
But if they're delivering lumber to build a house, or
Again, there's some provisions in the vehicle and traffic law that are actually incorporated, I believe, from federal DOT regulations.
If they're living on that street's one thing, driving through is another.
So there's a weight limit per axle for driving on Route 9. So those limits would apply. So that's the standard weight limit applies on any road. So to the extent that, you know, the VTL allows us to reduce that limit on certain roads, however, that reduced limit doesn't apply in the case of deliveries. So you can't have a you know, total, you know, you can't drive an overweight truck
Right.
on the town road.
So as I understand it, Mr. Patina, you will be getting a disc that will hopefully shed some information.
Right.
Mr. Horan said that there's a form or some forms that we can be submitting to the state to address the issue.
Well, I
Is that
mean,
not correct?
as Highway Superintendent Patina notes, I mean, there's one other issue is, under New York State, as far as maximum speed limits, according to DOT publication, state DOT publications, we can't set a different speed limit for trucks versus cars. The speed limit has to be the same.
Right.
So, you know, there was a discussion as far as the 40-mile-an-hour speed limit being excessive on North Ruger Road. It's according to the DOT regs. Approximately, I think it's maybe a half mile or so, a quarter mile north of the Chelsea Hamlet, out to the intersection with Old State Road is 40 miles an hour. And I believe Old State Road, that is old.
But I think, you know, again, Councilwoman
So
Bettina
that's
is talking about the inconsistency where you jump from one to the other
Yeah,
and
no.
back. That logically, although a lot of these things defy logic,
So,
would
I
say that we should be able to address that somehow, and so that's what we want to know.
So the town has a townwide speed limit of 30 miles an hour, with the exception of certain roads. And there's probably about 20 or so roads.
Yes, you provided us with a
Yeah.
list of those.
So most of them are county roads, but some of them are town roads, North Road being one of them, Old State Road being another. You know, those are the current ones on the books. I've seen some orders. There's been a number of speed studies over the years on Chelsea Road, and we can correspond with County DPW, but to see what they have as the latest study. As Councilman Bettina, or Highway Superintendent Bettina said, I think it was the last one was 1993, and that's what's reflected in the DOT
You
regulations.
know, let's have an action plan. You know, the next 2 weeks you can communicate by email, but I think we want to have a plan of action.
Okay.
You know, we understand the confusion, the illogic of
Yep.
it, and
Right.
so forth.
Trying to get that disc.
But we need to get something done, because I think we all agree, and certainly I've been down to Chelsea a lot of times, you know, and there is a problem. You know,
45
how do we
miles an
address
hour
it?
coming to
So-
those apartments there.
So let's, you
I've
know,
actually witnessed
look at
deaths
that.
on that road. I mean, some of them in McMillan put a stoplight, took
So
forever to get a
let's
stoplight.
just do that in for our, June 10th meeting? Is that
Okay.
when we have it? Let's have a presentation on this so we can
Well,
actually.
we have to get
Thank
the
you.
information, supervise all due respect. I'd have to have the disc even for us to even consider.
Okay, well, you're good friends with Balkine, so, you know, twist the arm. If not, then we'll
We'll
figure
try to
another
make
way
it
to get
happen.
it. Okay, I mean, seriously.
Jim, thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate
Good
it.
night.
Vincent,
Thank you.
Thank you very
Okay,
much.
good night. Let's move on to our resolutions. The first resolution for review is Resolution 2019-95, and as we discussed before, this is a resolution authorizing repairs to the field service at Inspiration Field, but in light of our previous discussion, I believe it's appropriate to table it, and then...
I'll move the table.
Okay.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Any nays or abstentions? The motion passes. The next resolution is also one that was tabled the last time because we did not have the information, the data points. This is a resolution 2019-121. It's a resolution authorizing the community garden at Carnwath Farms and the transfer of funds for the fence. This is a recall, we actually had plowed, you know, a nice area for community gardens. We've also had Sparrow's Nest and some others interested in you know, growing organic food out there. We had requested Bob Gray, to look at some quotes, and I believe that he has some information to share with the board on this issue.
All right, we have 2 quotes, and they're very close.
Thank you.
I think it's pretty straightforward. You'll see the first quote is from Geocorp.
Thank you.
That's a 7.5-foot high fence. I'll grab the mic.
Thank you.
Real quick, the first quote I gave you is from Geocorp. You'll see it's a plastic deer fence on steel posts, 7.5-foot high. A wire top and bottom, and a 4-foot wide gate. Posts are driven for this. Okay. The price there is $9,564.60.
Is that ground sufficient to hold a driven post as compared with a concrete embedded
Well, it's
post?
not as good as a concrete.
No, I know that, but the ground ground,
Yes,
you know,
yes.
materials are
What does
okay.
driven mean?
Pounded into the ground.
Okay.
And, they have a spade on the bottom.
Right, right, the other one.
That's post. Second proposal is a 6-foot fence. The difference here is that all the posts will be set in concrete. The price for that is $9,400. But what I don't like about it is it's a 6-foot fence.
Right, deer can,
I'm
That's
trying to
not-
keep deer out of
yeah,
there. I
that's
think the 7.5-foot fence is the way to go, even though they're not concrete posts, or the posts are not concreted in.
So your recommendation is Geocorp?
Yes.
Okay.
Because of the height.
Okay.
How large is the area that we're fencing in?
196 feet by 78.
And whereabouts on the property is this?
Yeah.
It's
yeah.
above the administration building in that field.
Okay.
And it's easy for people to get to
yeah,
and
and
leave and
we'll
all
have a
that stuff.
path.
There
in this.
are areas where you can get up there. We are planning to spread mulch from the upper parking lot. If you will, when you come into Carnwath, you have the lower parking lot by the Manor House. On the left-hand side, there's an upper parking lot. So we can have a walking trail in with mulch up there. You can also access it from up top. If you're familiar, is the picnic table still there? Yes. From
Yes,
that area.
picnic table's
back
still
in.
there. And then also from the right side of the administration building where we had cleared the ground, to put in the cable, the electric wire and so forth, that's all cleared now and put mulch, and actually, that's another access point.
It's a little steeper,
But it's still, and the other aspect of this is Camel Pollution has agreed to donate basically a line from the well and then put a receptacle, sort of like what you see out in the fields for water tank, and then connect it so that you can connect hoses to it so it can be irrigated from our well.
Have we discussed what budget line we're using to fund this?
That I don't know.
I think this is a parkland trust, potentially.
Well, yeah, let's
Yes.
just,
Yeah, I would rather use parkland trust on a fence for 10 grand.
Yeah, I agree.
I was just asking because I want to make sure we knew where it was being allocated from.
Yeah, no,
Yeah,
right.
I think that would be
That's
the
the way I
best,
see it.
best approach.
Yes. Mr. Rand, you agree with that
Yes,
assessment?
this is a capital improvement, it will be
Okay, then I'll make that motion to do it for that purposes out of that fund.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any nays or abstentions? The motion passes. Thank you for that. The next item is, and Mr. Gray, thank you for doing the work on this. Thank you. Resolution 2019-123. This is a resolution authorizing, spelled wrong, change order number 1 to contract for Schlotthouse Parks improvement. Compared to some of our other change orders, this is actually a small dollar item, $408. I would note that we saw the pictures today.
Yes.
Some excellent work that was done. Bob, you want to explain it because it's electrical out
Sure,
there.
it was, we found some unsafe conditions with the electrical wiring for the lights out under the porch. the wire had been drilled through the casing around the window. We felt we should needed to do something better than that. So it's all to code now, and it's a nice light underneath that porch. And I think the porch, I'm kind of proud of that. That was we discussed that
Yes.
just when we were starting.
Yes.
I think it really improves
Yeah.
the whole look of the building. You got room for a couple of chairs out on that porch now.
I would say, yeah, one of the things that I was trying to focus on and make sure we got accomplished was the improvements to Schlatthaus, and I think we made great strides towards doing that. We have the bulletin boards would look much better and much more professional. We obviously are doing what we're doing with the office building there and a number of other things at Schlatthaus. So obviously we're there on Monday and it's looking great. So I want to thank everybody for their cooperation and the support of that project, because I think it was well needed, and I think we're getting close to coming to fruition. We're completing it. So thank you everyone who did what they did to make sure we got it done.
And not to jinx it, but also thank, Steve and Bob for managing this so that we didn't, and we brought it in basically under budget. And this is the only one.
Thank you.
That's what I'm committed to, but I think it's an excellent job, on doing it.
Well spent.
Yes.
And Steve's been instrumental too in helping this, and
You agree
hardly
this is the
recognize
only
it.
Oh,
change
yeah, no,
order,
I mean,
right?
I think we did a tremendous,
Close the contract.
You agree this is
Yeah, I
the
think
only
we-
change order that you could think of, right?
good, yeah, thank you.
Almost complete.
Yes.
It looks really good.
Yeah.
It does.
The only thing I would say is
Yes,
that
thank
door in the bottom right, are we doing anything with that?
I don't know.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I know that's
I mean-
separate access.
I mean, not to belabor anything, but we put all this money into the entire building looking beautiful, but that door probably needs to be replaced. You know what I'm talking about, right? That door on the bottom right.
Yeah.
It just looks like it's fallen off. But, I would obviously support the $400, but perhaps a door would be the icing on
I
the
would
cake.
certainly approve that if that's what the pleasure of the board is.
Steve, is that something you can do, or we have our contract?
Well, it depends on how quickly you want it done.
Yeah, I know you.
Before 2021. No, I mean, a contractor can do that too. I'm not saying we need to
Right.
discuss this right now and move it, but just a thought. Before we get to Community Day, it might be nice to have, not before we get to Community Day, before we
I
get
was just
to,
gonna say, yeah,
Get a quote, and I can present that for change order in the next meeting.
Sure.
yeah, please.
all right, I'll move the 400.
Just not gold plated.
I second.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a motion and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any nays or abstentions? Okay, thank you. Yeah, very good.
Thank you.
Bob, no, seriously, thank you. And Steve, thank you for.
Yes, no, I mean, I think Mort's Field and Schlatthaus Park, we've done many things with that to make those parks very beautiful, and I do thank everybody once again for
And
their
Steve
support.
did on March, you mentioned,
Yeah.
did get the water line in.
Yeah.
And did a great job of getting that set up, so we'll have that ready.
Yeah.
It makes me look at the railing now on the handicap ramp. That would look really good if it matched the railing on the bridge.
Well,
No, we
But we'll leave it alone.
Yeah,
leave it for now. I think it's functional and it
So
looks
thank
fine,
you.
actually.
it's
Thank
ADA
you.
compliant, that's the main thing.
solid, though.
Yeah, it does.
It is.
It is.
Doesn't need a mat.
Yeah. Okay, very good. Well, thank you. Next item is Resolution 2019-124. 125 is a sister resolution. This first one is in the matter of the extension of the United Wappinger Water District Extension Number 7 for Mid-Hudson Sikh Cultural Society, Inc. This is to set a public hearing for June, June the 10th, is it? Or, no, June 24th, I believe. Jim? That's the date. And Jim had been waiting in order to do this for some materials which we have received, that he's received in order to go ahead with the public hearing.
All right, move it.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any nays or abstentions? Motion passed. Next resolution, 2019-125. This is the matter of the extension of the United Wappinger Sewer District, extension number 5, Mid-Hudson Sikh Cultural Society, Inc., again, setting the public hearing for June 24th. We have a motion?
I'll move it.
second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any nays or abstentions? Seeing none, the motion also passes. Thank you. Now, the next item on the agenda is Resolution 2019-126. This is a resolution awarding contract 19-001 for United Wappinger Water District Chelsea Service Line Connections and Road Repairing. Now, this is what's been authorized by the New York City DEP by a contract. This is for Thomas Gleason, Inc., a low bid of $758,520. Bob, do you have any comments on this as to the bidding
No,
process?
just the funding, I was just consulting with the attorney here on how that would work.
Okay.
Jim is satisfied.
So, with respect to the funding, we have, as board, the older board members are aware, the town has an municipal agreement with the city of New York regarding the extension of the water line, originally for $11 million? $11 million that Bob was able to strong arm out of the city of New York. They were cooperative. They were, they were very cooperative in the whole process. And Bob did a lot of work and got the project through, which many people didn't think would ever happen. And but anyway, we're nearing the end of that. Right now, the intermunicipal agreement requires that we spend money by October of 2019. We had an extension. This is getting toward the end of the project. There's some funds that are available. I believe at the last board meeting, the board authorized Bob to go forward and look at the last steps of the project. So we're trying to clean up the crumbs on the table. Bob wants to make sure that there's no crumbs left. We had conversation with New York City DEP as far as financing on the first phases of the construction of the project. New York City had fronted us money, and then we spent money out of that. There's approximately, I think, $75,000 remaining out of those funds. Going forward, New York City has taken the position that we would advance the money. The resolution provides for advancing money out of the UWWD fund balance. We would then submit vouchers to New York City for their approval. And in the past, they've basically approved all the vouchers that we've submitted. Once we've supplied all the information that they've been requested, they've been pretty cooperative. So that's what this resolution entails, that the contract is awarded and that we exhaust the money that's available, and then we submit vouchers to New York City DEP, and as reimbursement comes in, we then reimburse the fund balance for UWWD. And Frederick has confirmed that there's sufficient fund balance currently available at UWWD.
Thank you.
Just if I may, these funds are available because in the first phase, we had Schultz Construction, remember, on Hopewell Road, Wheeler Hill Road, and through Carmont and out to River Road. There were 10 bidders for that project, and Schultz was the low bidder, and they did just a terrific job. I mean, talk about change orders, there were no changes. I think we actually ended up with some credits. And then the second contractor...
Microphone.
The second contractor was...
What's it?
Bebo Construction, who got the project done very quickly. It was not as pretty, but it got done. So because of those efficiencies, we had this $1.2 million left over. Negotiations with the city, they were very specific on what we could use that money for.
Okay.
And this is the only thing we could use the money for, was to connect these properties to the water main. From the water main to their house, put meters in, and they'd be hooked up. That's how this happened.
So what's the balance going to be after this?
Well, right now, what we did, we put it out to bid because we didn't want to overspend. And we put unit prices, we asked for unit prices from the contractor. So we've added some properties, and we've now just, the board authorized us at the last meeting to go to the end of Skytop. So we're going to see how those properties, how that affects, how many people. amazingly enough, there's a number of people that don't want to hook up to water, even if it's free. So,
But we're still working on them.
yeah.
Even if
so-
it's free?
Well, the hookup is free. They still get
They gotta
water.
pay, exactly.
water.
Yeah, so it's not free. I just want to make sure.
The work to hook them up, and this can run anywhere from $10,000 to $20,000. So we haven't had 100% participation, which kind of surprised me. So we opened it up for the rest of Skytop, see how that goes. And I want to keep a reserve because I think once we get doing the work in Chelsea, we're going to get people come forward, say, hey, what about me? Why can't I do, can I get this done? So I really want to, as Jim said, I don't want to leave any crumbs. I want to
Use it all.
spend that money totally, but I also don't want to go over. Okay. So that's a short version. It's a long meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions for them? Have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Any nays or abstentions? Seeing none, the motion passes. The next item is Resolution 2019-127. This is a resolution authorizing contract for consulting services for grant opportunities. Just for the board's information, I was able to get Scott Williams, who had been at the village, has left to go on the job in Connecticut, to agree to work with us to help us on our variety of grant applications. And I truly mean a variety, maybe sewer, maybe water. It's related to a variety of things, actually, that we are going to look at, some of which you even talked tonight about, Inspiration Field, Carnweth, et cetera. So he's actually agreed, to do it at, I think, a reasonable rate, and especially for him, $95 an hour is asked in the contract for payment up front retainer of $1,900. That's equivalent of 20 hours, which will be then paid down. And we had, budgeted for $10,000 in our budget for grant writer. I think we get more than excellent service for that. Jim Moran's raised an issue with respect to where that is paid from, but I see him providing grant services for a variety of, grants. So I guess the question is, Mr. Horan, is in the business world, of course, you can have grants and then you can charge back to different areas. Would we be able to do that? Say, if it was the United Wappinger Water District charge, we pay off of our line, but then it's reimbursed off of that. Is that possible?
Typically, yes. So,
Okay.
as far as grant writing services, and actually for water and sewer, it's actually pretty easy because they're separate grant applications typically. The grant for water is separate, goes to a different agency than the grant for sewer, so it's easy to keep track.
Right.
Then
I would ask him for an itemized sheet,
Right,
for
so
that.
to the extent you keep track of it, I know there is budget funding currently, I believe, is it an A-fund expense?
Yes, it was an A-fund.
So, but again, if it's an A-fund expense, you can certainly, for purposes of this resolution, just keep it as an A-fund expense, and then later, as you determine, you can charge it back to the appropriate districts.
Yeah.
So that's what I would propose to do.
Yeah.
Right.
And I would say this makes sense. Scott Williams certainly has been very good with us in the past of identifying and getting us grants. And certainly we have $10,000 allocated already for that purpose. So I don't see any reason why we shouldn't move forward with this. So I'll make that motion.
Second.
Bill, you were going to say something, I think.
Yeah, just to clarify, the retainer 1,900 out of a fund grant. It's $1,900.
$1,900.
No, 10,000 is what's.
So we have a budget line in the A fund for 10,000. Right, but the initial
Yeah, I read
expense
1,900.
is going to be
So
1,900.
the portion of the,
That's based on 20 hours at $95 an hour.
Right.
So the point is, at this point, we're appropriating $1,900 of the 10,000 that is budgeted. We're only authorizing 1,900 at this moment. And if you read the scope of services, that's going to give him the ability to start these grants. There's about 7 of them listed here. He'll come back to us.
How much out of the sewer district?
so then, just strike number 4 on the resolution. And right now, budget transfer isn't required.
Right, so the resolution indicates a water district and a sewer district appropriation. Disregard that, correct, Jim?
Right.
Correct.
We're doing an A fund authorization for 1,900.
So I'll amend my motion to strike those provisions.
Second.
And then he'll come back to us.
Well, I mean, it's already budgeted, so you don't have to.
Right, but when we understand what type of hours are involved with some of these grants, we may need to further
Okay, well, we can do
authorize.
that, too.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Well, since it's already budgeted, if we approve the contract,
Right.
and then I would be responsible along with Frederick to monitor and make sure it doesn't go over, not to exceed the 10,000,
of
but
course.
I would be reporting back to the board. I don't know if that's just
Okay, so.
additional bureaucracy that we,
No, you're right. So,
right.
the reason why I was bringing it up more specifically is because we're going to charge back sewer and water as we need to, but we'll do that.
We'll keep.
Based on
Do
accounting
that
wise.
after the bills come in.
Yeah.
Those will be, that's what
Right.
I'm referring to.
Yeah.
So we have a
That's right.
$1,900 retainer we're authorizing, but you have up to $10,000 to spend in the A
Right.
fund. Then we'll charge back the water and sewer on resolution, right?
After the vehicle.
After-
Yes, that's right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then I
We're on the same wavelength.
Yep.
Thank you for getting Scott to.
No, he's actually very
continue
enthusiastic
with
about
us.
working with us.
Yeah, no, that's.
Okay, we have a
Okay,
motion
so-
and a second.
Okay,
Yes.
as amended.
Yes, as
Okay,
amended.
motion and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any nays or abstentions? That motion passes. Next resolution is 2019-128. Apologize for the gentleman waiting so long. This is setting escrow for review of petitions for special district extensions pursuant to Article 12. This is what is otherwise known as NERP, or also known as Tractor Supply, for a $7,500 escrow account to be established.
Move.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Any nays or abstentions? Motion passed. You may leave, no need for questions. Okay, thank you for coming.
Straightforward escrow
Yes.
request.
Well, if you want, we can ask you questions.
Yeah.
No, I didn't think so.
The next item on the agenda is Resolution 2019-129, a resolution accepting an undertaking secured by a restoration bond in connection with soil disturbance. This is ENC Espicos Properties, and otherwise known as 20 McFarland Road. That's what we kind of always understand it to be. It's a 2.3 acre, property. We're talking about a $20,000 cash deposit under a bond. Jim, you've looked at the bond?
Yeah, there's one change that needs to be made in
Okay.
the resolution. The bond, the cash deposit was in the amount of 20,000, but the bond is in the amount of 25,000.
Okay.
So in number one, or actually in the 1, 2, 3, 4, whereas it says the service insurance company in the amount of 20, that should be 25.
Okay.
And then in paragraph number 1, it should be in the amount of 25,000.
Okay.
Apologize for the error.
Okay. So we noted those additions, so that's an amendment to this resolution.
Cash deposit is 20,000, oh, it's the cash deposit 25 too? Okay, so then in number 2, so the cash deposit's 25, and for some reason I thought it was 25.
So wait a second, just clarify,
Every
for us
place
in the
where it
record.
says 20,000,
Make it 25.
Make it 25, okay. Okay, thank you.
And what is this in regards to?
So this is regarding the property at 20 McFarland. It was the old Sloper Willem property. The prior owner applied for a use variance to the ZBA, which was granted, conditioned on site plan approval. The prior owner sold to the current owner, and they got a change of use authorized at the planning board. However, the current owner wanted to do improvements at the site. He did the improvements without the benefit of site plan approval. He didn't understand that he needed site plan approval.
Okay.
So there was a stop work order issued. There was some erosion and sediment controls that were required to be placed on the site. The applicant has complied with that, and the reason why I left this meeting was to go to the ZBA regarding this particular application. And so there's actually an area variance pending regarding regarding the changes that are proposed for the site, which is on the June 11th meeting.
This is a commercial parcel?
It's zoned R20, but because it was Sloper William for years and years, then it was various car places.
Right.
So the current occupant has a building maintenance company.
Yeah.
The proposal is to make some changes to the roof, basically replace the flat roof with a pitched roof.
Right.
Make it, a better more usable building, and then there's an old garage on the site, which I believe was a 3-bay garage. He wants to tear it down and replace it with a 4-bay garage.
Okay, thank you. I'll move it.
I'll second it.
Second, all in favor? Aye. Any nays or abstentions? The motion passes. Thank you, Jim. And then the next item is Resolution 2019-130, a resolution authorizing transfer of funds for media purchase or in connection with the multimedia system. This is $1,700. This is with respect to, I sent you, I think, earlier, email, IP extender, also cart, so that we can move it around town hall.
Yeah, we've talked about what the need that we have for that type of service and how great we have been as far as improving it. So certainly I would support that. I'll make that motion.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Any nays or abstentions? The motion passes. The last resolution on this part of the agenda is Resolution 2019-131, approval of the correspondence log.
I'll move it.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Any nays or abstentions? The motion passes. Any items for special consideration new business?
Yeah, actually one. In fact, in the correspondence log, which we just approved, I see something from Joe Ennisser. He was asking for the remainder of the grant funds, I guess, for the Greenway Trail, approximately $600 to $700 to be used for the purchase of trail brochures. I don't know if we've looked at that or we can approve that tonight, but he's asking us for an expedited answer in his letter.
I think that's addressed to the Greenway group, isn't it?
Is it?
Yeah, it's Hudson
Yeah,
Valley
Hudson
Greenway.
Valley
Okay,
Greenway. We were
so
copied-
we don't
copied
need
the-
we don't need to approve
Yeah,
that. is what I'm saying.
copied May
I
and
got
the
it.
board,
Okay.
so we have that.
That works.
Yeah.
The only question I have regarding the Greenway, though, is I believe we pay an individual to open parks and close parks utilizing a Greenway or trail warden or something.
Trail warden.
There's trail warden and what?
He opens and closes part of our park.
Who does he?
But not all the other parks, right?
Not all the others.
Who does he report to?
Joe Ennisser, I believe, he's been reporting to, because we get a financial, a bill, from, through Joe Ennisser.
Yeah. So he would report to Joe as the Greenway chairman, and then he would report to the town board. In the past, they reported to, I believe, the Recreation Commission, but Joe has always given you guys.
So where is this funding coming from? We don't fund it?
We pay for it.
You do, it's out of your budget.
Well, that's why I was curious as to why he's requested someone else to release the funds.
No, that's a different. That's a different issue.
Okay.
We pay for the.
That's what I thought. That's I guess where the confusion is.
Well, the reason why I bring it up is it just seems like there's not any oversight on this person, because there's times where the gate will be closed and there's times where the gate will be open, and there's, I've asked Steve about this, and Steve relates that he doesn't even know who this person is.
The reports that I get don't talk about the gate. They're the trails that have been cleaned by them and maintained. That's what I see. And that's what I've been paying it on.
I just want to make sure that
out of our budget.
Before we go into budget,
You've raised this issue
many times
during budget, and when Bob Johnson and I had a discussion about this sometime last year.
I was just going to say that.
So I can get some documentation. We did some research on it, so I know Bob Johnson actually had a sit down and interviewed the person, so I believe we had 2 people at one point.
Yeah, there's a trail warden and an assistant trail warden. And we have all that information still in the office from when Bob Johnston interviewed and sat down.
That was
their contact and everything.
That was never related to the town board, though.
No.
And when we go into budget this year,
Good to know.
we need to know
I think
who
there's
the
also,
person is.
we'll talk about it in the other room.
Okay.
Okay.
I have
Very
a
good.
question. Not all the parks are open.
No, that's what I was just asking.
So there's residents coming to me, asking why, as an example, Castle Point Park is not open. It's always under lock and key.
And this has been a discussion we've had for on and off for years why there's inconsistencies with access to certain parks. And my thought was, and my hope was previously, that the person that is being paid by the town to open gates and close gates at one park could be the same person that opens gates and closes gates at another park, but I've never been able to get any sort of specific response to that question. So at some point, perhaps we can find a solution.
And neither have I. You know, the only thing I got from the trail wardens is in accounting with respect to the trails they clean and maintain, and doesn't appear about opening any gates.
Well, that's
Maybe at some
something that
point we can
need to-
have these wardens
Well,
come in and have a
I
let's
did,
have
you
them
know,
come in
no,
next
I mean, actually, well, yeah, we can do that, but certainly I also had discussion with Jessica with respect to that too. So is that recreation department and Steve at one point with buildings and grounds, but it's been inconclusive. You know, so
There was a-
I'll follow up on that.
There was a time where we had buildings and grounds personnel open the gates and
Right.
close the gates, but it ended up taking, too much time for them to,
Yeah.
they'd have to leave, if their shift ended at 3, they'd have to leave, stop mowing lawns at 2 to go
Right.
do all the gates, and
And-
it was inefficient.
And also, Councilwoman Bettina has raised a very good point with respect to signs. You know, again, the
I think that
inconsistency or outdated signs that were
I
related
sent
to the
everybody an
various
email
parts.
that hopefully we can address that as a
Yeah,
board.
So we'll look into that and
Steve
then
is- 'cause
can have a report next
That would be
meeting.
another thing, because the residents are asking,
Yeah.
when are they supposed to open, when are they supposed to
Wow.
close?
And a number
So
of
I think
parks,
we could-
and
yeah.
like Reese Park. You know, we have the
Exactly.
same issue down there.
Yeah, so we could fix it for everybody.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So I'll see what I can gather up in the next couple of weeks and then get a report at the next board meeting.
Perfect.
Okay, do we need to go into?
Yes, we need to go in executive session. This would be for the purpose of discussing a union contract, an administrative law, a claim issue, and also workers' compensation issue that we need to review. in
I'll
executive
move for that legal advice and for those purposes.
Okay, all in favor? Aye. Any nays or abstentions? The motion passes for legal advice at the executive session.
Yes, correct.